begin any second now. Yep.
Cool beans.
We are live. In the green. Let's give it another couple of seconds.
Yeah, I just got the notification from YouTube.
We can monitor chat, so if anyone pops in. We got the right thumbnail, yep. Okay. Good evening, welcome to episode 2 of Wren Rhodes. I'm Rhodes.
I'm Wren.
And tonight we're going to be doing a post-read analysis of Animorphs books 1 through 5. So, first of all we have to answer to people what is Animorphs, I guess. So Animorphs is a book series written by Catherine Applegate and Michael Grant.
Yes.
Which started... When the fuck was it? 1995?
God, yeah.
I don't know. Can you research that?
Early
Can we
to,
do a fact
early
check?
to mid 90s, but I'll double check now.
But yeah, it started as a book series.
1996.
We will get onto that. 1996
you
through to 2000, right? 2001 maybe?
Oh, no, you're asking.
But yeah, there's like 60 books.
Yeah, May 2001.
I think there's 60 books, 64 actually, I remember there being. In total, that's including all the spin-offs and stuff. So basically, it also had a TV series that didn't do too well, so that didn't go to anywhere.
No, we have watched a couple episodes of the TV series to try and align it with the books, and it's not really matching up all that well, to be honest.
We'll get to that at some point. But anyway, the books. So basically a group of kids, ordinary kids, American kids. One night they end up in a construction site.
Walking home from the
because
mall.
it's a shortcut to get home. And they discover basically an alien invasion starting right in front of them. And... basically, an alien discovers them. Well, no. They find the alien after he's crashed his ship, and because they happen to be the first kids that meet this alien, they're given the powers to hide themselves into animal bodies as a way to, like... They can basically use the animal forms to sneak around, and it creates a lot of advantages against the Yerks, which are the alien race that's invading.
Little slugs that take over
Sorry,
people's
my brain's
brains.
dying. Can you take over?
Okay, yeah,
Sorry.
right. So essentially, yeah, as Yumi explains, they run into an Andalite known as Prince Alfangor, who gives them the morphing abilities.
Yes, there's a thing called an Esquivel device, which is a blue cube shape.
Yes.
And it's Andalite technology that happens to be at the back of Alfangor's ship.
It essentially allows the user to acquire the DNA of another species to then be able to turn into said species. It doesn't just have to be humans turning into animals, it can be any known species that has DNA.
Yes. So there's many hijinks, but basically the whole point of the books is that these kids have to basically stop the invasion, or at least try and delay the invasion until the Andalites can come in higher numbers to help. Spoiler alert, though, they don't. Because they're dicks.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, book 1. We'll start with book 1. So, book 1, we meet the team. You've got your thing, so would you like to tell us about these people?
Yes.
What you think of them?
So, I'll just run through the names quickly and then go into them in more detail in a second. So, the main cast, we've got Jake, Cassie, Rachel, Marco, and Tobias.
Okay.
Jake is... he's basically the leader of the group. He's the most balanced character.
Yeah.
He's kind of...
Though he doesn't really know why. He's just kind of thrust into that role.
Yeah, everybody kind of just looks up to him as a leader, and he's really confused about it. But
because he's kind of placid and agreeable and sort of like malleable to most most people's demands.
I think it purely comes down to his attributes, because he can be both emotionally charged as well as quite logical at times when needed.
He tends to just accept how things are. There's a bit of logic there, but really he just wants everyone to be happy most of the time.
Yeah.
There's only a few times in the series where he will put his foot down and actually like you know,
tell him
like,
off.
we're doing this. That's the end
like
of
this
it.
is how it's gonna be.
Shut up, Marco, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah. So then we've got Cassie. There is, worth noting, a slight love interest between her and Jake. Just a little bit.
You can sense it sometimes, yes. Yeah. There's a few interactions where you can tell that they... Although I don't think they necessarily both know that they like each other. It's kind of like a
she likes him, he likes her, but they don't really know.
So, yeah, it's kind of like just a thing that's in both minds.
Yeah.
That never really gets...
She's considered the smart character. She comes from a family of vets, so they're quite scientific and they're quite... analytically inclined, and it's also quite useful because it means she has access to a lot of animals.
For a group of kids that can now turn into animals, it is kind of important to have like an expert on animals, and she's as close to one as you can get. Yeah,
because essentially her mum is
they have a barn, and her family are all veterinarians. They rescue injured animals of all types.
Well, there's two different things, because her mum is a veterinary surgeon at the gardens, which is also like a wildlife park, a roller coaster park.
And it's a sort of base for the Animorphs. After a while, they use it as sort of like a place where they can meet up and discuss plans for future missions.
And then her dad runs a wildlife rescue on their home property, where they have a lot of wildlife just in their barn that they're healing up.
As we'll get into, that's the place where they get most of their first morphs, because it's like a mini zoo that they basically have like access to all these animals that they can... and it's worth noting, I mean, it's not that important in the grand scheme of things, but Cassie is black.
Yeah.
She's the only black Animorph.
She's the black representation, and there is another character who is a person of colour, but he's not black.
Marco happens to be Hispanic.
Well, he's mixed, isn't he, really? His mum's Hispanic. His mum's Hispanic, his dad's white.
Latinx, I don't know. I don't know the terms, but yeah, definitely sort of like...
they use
Southern America.
Yeah, they use Hispanic in the book, so I guess that's true to keep it to that.
I guess we should move on to Marco then. Have we gone over Cassie completely?
Well, we do have to note Cassie is also the ethical and moral character.
She's very up to ethics. She will always have the bleeding heart about things. So isn't there that one bit in the book?
Yeah, I'll explain.
They're debating whether it's ethical for them to basically take these animals and sort of become them, because she thinks it's basically like you are possessing them and you're sort of using them, and what if they don't want that? And she's she has a massive moral dilemma about it.
This all came on from a section in, I believe it's book 3, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
is it book 4?
I think it's the book 4. It's the message. It's when they because they need the dolphin morphs to get to.
So essentially, it started because we're all pretty much aware of how intelligent dolphins are as a species, and Cassie is obviously aware of that given her family background. And she was wondering whether it would be ethical to acquire and use an animal that has such a high level of intellect. She was debating as to whether that was moral or not. Obviously, they didn't have any other issues with smaller and less intelligent morphs, like insects and things like that. But she did. It was acquiring such an intelligent animal that made her really question, is this okay? Or...
Yeah, so she's always the one in the group to always question everything. We'll get into the whole dolphin thing when it happens, because we've got the big list of notable events from the books to cover.
Yeah.
But first we're covering all bases with characters.
Mm-hmm.
So
we've got Marco. We'll move on to Marco next. Yeah, he's a bit all over the place at times, really. He's quite logical when he needs to be, but at the same time, because he's quite a vulnerable person.
Sense he has a lot of stress under him.
Yeah.
He has he's quite traumatized by a lot of things.
Yeah, he's had a lot of bad things happen in his life with his parents specifically.
We assume for most of the books that his mother is dead, but then when she pops up again, before we started, we should have said there's major spoilers. So if you haven't read the books, you should probably come back at a later point. So just putting that out there right now.
But yeah, the thing with Marco is, as well as being quite logical when he needs to be, he's also very sarcastic and witty, because he uses it to hide his vulnerability as a person.
It reminds me of the way, in Friends, when Chandler likes to cover up his own his own damage, I guess.
His pain
by
and his flaws.
Throwing jokes out and just being like, the always the one to crack the jokes because it helps him cope with harsh situations.
Yeah.
And Marco is very much the same way, although it's kind of beneficial in some ways because after they've been through a really traumatic mission, Marco's always there to like bring everyone back down to earth.
The comic
like,
relief.
Guys, we're all just kids, we're all just
relief,
kids in this fucked up world. Basically, yeah. But he has like a lot of weight on his shoulders because his father is really the only person he has left, other than his mates.
And vice versa. Marco is the only person his father
so
has
he's
left.
conflicted because on one hand he wants to get revenge on the Yeerks for what they've done to his mother, which we'll get into later. But also his father, like he had to leave his father behind because if anything happens to him, then he won't be around to protect his dad. So. So he's like, do I fight? Do I not fight? I don't want to, but I've got to. And it's, this whole thing, this whole dilemma. You would say out of all the Animorphs, he's probably the one with the biggest stakes because other than Jake, he really does have, his family is stuck in it.
Which actually reminds me, we forgot to mention about Jake before, the fact that his brother...
We find out very early that Jake's brother, Tom, is a controller, which pisses Jake off to no end.
So yeah, that's his main motivation for...
Because initially, most of the Animorphs, with a few exceptions, they just want to get stuck in and tear through some Yeerk shit. But Jake and Marco particularly, they're like, we're just kids, do we really have to do this? You know? Hold on a sec. No, we are still green. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just YouTube being finicky.
Where were we?
Talking about Jake and his brother Tom and their motivations for wanting to. So
those two very differently. Very early on, they find out that there's no way they can stay out of this anymore because the Yeerks are involved directly.
There was a bit of time where Jake was also in denial about his brother, and he ends up getting into a fight with Marco about it.
Marco have like a giant spat.
They exchange some fisticuffs, and they sort it out in the end.
But I mean, Jake knows his brother so well, so he knows that even if Tom uses the wrong language for like a thing that they regularly talk about, Jake just
he picks up on it.
He says, "Yeah, you're not talking like you normally do.
Yeah,
you're staring at me way too much. Like, what's going on?" And eventually he just realises that there's like a giant Yeerk pool that's in the middle of the city under the school, and Tom would have been one of the first ones down there with a big slug in his ear. Yeah. So we've discussed the plot, like what Animorphs is, what's going on.
We've got a couple more characters.
We've got characters, yes we do. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Rachel next.
Rachel.
She is Jake's cousin.
She it's numerous times throughout the book she's called like a supermodel. So we've got this whole idea that she's conventionally attractive.
She's slim, she's blonde, she's tall.
She's the popular girl, she's a gymnast. All the boys want her. She's got no time for them most of the time. Rachel's quite sassy, she's very courageous. She has loads of courage, but unfortunately the thing is she's quite emotionally loud, which means that there's a number of times in the books where she will just want to get stuck in, ram herself in at the deep end, putting everyone's lives in danger, and it takes people like Marco and Jake and even Cassie to sometimes pull her back and say, no, we have to do this like smartly, we can't just go rampaging in there like behind you as an elephant. You know?
She is quite impulsive. She's a perfect example of there being a fine line between bravery and stupidity. Yeah,
but I think this is how they all gel well together, though, because you've got Marco, he's always the one to come up with the cool ideas for like how to get into places and without attracting too much attention and stuff, because he's the most invested in all of them to like, I want to stay alive, that's pretty cool for me, thanks.
Yeah.
Cassie's always the one thinking like, we want to do this, but we want to do this as cleanly as possible without like any ethical issues.
Yeah.
Jake wants the plan to go off without a hitch, and he just doesn't want the plans to fail. He's always the one who likes things going to plan. But Rachel is the one that brings the courage. She's the one that says, yes, we can go in there, we can do it. Nothing's going to stop us.
Yeah.
They're going to get out of our way. She's the one who just psychs them up, gets them ready for battle. Because sometimes they have to. Sometimes they're terrified to go out there and fight these aliens that they've only just like, they can barely understand them because they've literally been in the game for like only a week.
Yeah.
At the time being, I don't know how the books never really tell us how long the things have been, but 5 books, you could say that's like the first couple of weeks. And you can tell that they're still very inexperienced, and they still, every time they go out for a mission, they assume that they're going to die, like, because they know that they're only one fuck up away from completely just, ending.
Yeah, and going back to the fact that these are children, these are like young
these are kids.
Teenagers.
Normally they only have to worry about the next exam, but now they've it's the juxtaposition at the end of every book, because they're all like, oh, I've got homework to do now.
Yeah,
and it's like
really strange.
Only a couple of hours ago they were like in some alien ship, like sailing through the
child soldiers,
Z space or whatever,
Okay, so let's go over Tobias now.
Tobias,
arguably one of the most interesting characters.
We get the impression from Tobias immediately that he's quite shy and
he's troubled.
Sort of strange, very sort of like mysterious.
Yeah.
He has the mysterious thing going on. Just like a pale lad, really. Everyone sort of treats him as a loner. But he's deeply...
he's quite troubled.
He's deeply, what's it called? Loyal to people. There's numerous times throughout the book where he's extremely loyal to both his friends, to anybody who needs help, really. In fact, there's one book, he's basically he's a Notholit, which is a term that Andalites use for people who've used the Andalite technology to morph into animals, who then get stuck as animals because they've spent longer than 2 hours, which is the limit, before your body gets stuck in Z space, which means you're stuck in the body that you've morphed into.
Yeah.
It's a complicated thing. But basically this happens very early on to Tobias, and he gets stuck as a red-tailed hawk. And in one book he kind of falls in love with another hawk, and it's really weird because the hawk is getting like shot at a car dealership, and he just jumps in there and just rescues the hawk. And throughout the rest of the book he has like an existential crisis, because he's like, oh, does the hawk love me back? I don't know, should I go up and say hi?
Do you remember there was that time where he first hunted a mouse and swallowed it, and it really fucked him up a little bit?
Because he thought, like, I've become the monster now.
Yeah,
like, I'm barely human.
Yeah. And then he has this nice heart-to-heart with Rachel, where she shows him
she shows him a picture. As he was, and she says, like, this is who you were. Never forget it.
You.
This is who you are.
Like,
this is the Tobias that I know, and it's who you still are.
He's quite a sad character, both in terms of what we know about his family background and also how he's feeling trapped in that morph.
Is it? I have a rubbish memory. Is he adopted? Is that what's going on?
He doesn't neither of his mum or dad is around, and if you remember, he's being passed in between like his aunt and uncle's house frequently.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
So he's never like settled anywhere. He doesn't have his parents properly. That does a lot to a young kid.
That actually explains a lot, because being trapped as a hawk, getting used to the idea that you can sleep, you've always got a different bed every night, you're always in a different tree or whatever. Like, he would be kind of used to that, wouldn't he? Because he's couch hopping between his aunts and his nans. And,
it's
and
quite
all sorts.
It's quite sad, really, because at the moment, all of the different households that he would normally like move between, they all think that he is at another person's household. So his uncle thinks he's at his aunt's thinks he's at his uncle's, etc. So none of them actually know what's happened to him, except for his friends. It's really quite sad.
Well, that's why there's a thing in the book that struck me, because he becomes a hawk. Obviously, he gets stuck as one. We'll get into why. But basically, oh fuck, my brain's just gone off a deep end again.
You lost your train of thought.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
It happens.
We should have prepared more.
What's this wee stuff?
I should have. I don't know.
Yeah. Alright, so we'll move on from human characters for now. Shall we move on to some other characters, or do you want to talk about the books for a bit?
What the fuck I was on about. Okay, it's because I'm trying to monitor the stream while thinking, and it's just fucking me up.
Honestly, the harder you try to think about it, the less likely you are to remember it.
How many viewers do we have? 1. Okay. Hello, one person.
Oh.
I think that's probably your brother. Hello, Taz. Okay. So book 1, obviously, the invasion takes full swing. Obviously, this is obviously there's later books that go back even further, because we have like a prequel. We'll get to that when we read it, of course. But yeah, we meet the team. They're they're doing some shopping, going through the mall. They end up then at the construction site because they're on their way home. At which point they bump into Alfangor, who's just crashed his ship because he's trying to give the humans a warning that the Yeerks are on their way. To which point he does what he can for them before the Yeerks arrive. At which point he gives them powers to morph into the animals, any animal they choose. Before Visser 3 turns up and murders Alfangor. We haven't talked about Visser 3 either.
Yeah, well, you wanted to move on to the books. But we'll finish going through the characters, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
Alright, so...
Structure. Out the window.
That's your fault. Anyway, so we'll get into the Andalite characters that we know of currently. So we've obviously briefly mentioned Prince Alfangor. He gives them the powers to morph. He also, as he's dying, Tobias hangs around a little bit longer, and he gives Tobias a lot of knowledge on the Yeerks, which he didn't give to the others because
also
they were running away.
The TV show, it's actually Tobias who is the first one to try the morphing power out.
Yes.
In the TV show, you'll know that it's Jake because he turns into his dog. But that actually is not until later on that happens in the books. In the books, I think he's the second or the third. But I know Tobias is first.
Yeah.
I think he turns into his cat, if I'm correct.
He did say something about turning into a cat, yeah.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, so...
do you know any more about Alfangor at this point? He's a prince.
He's a prince, he's a warrior, he gives them powers and knowledge. That is literally...
We don't know much about the Andalite hierarchy, but as soon as we do, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, unfortunately that is all we know about him at the moment, aside from the fact he has a younger brother, technically, called... Well, he's not called Axe.
The full name is fucking...
It's so hard to say, so
Axe,
he's just Axe.
Aximilian something.
He's just Axe.
We call him Axe.
Yeah. Axe is, it's... Again, he sometimes makes me feel sad because he's quite naive.
He has the Andalite honour system entrenched in his head.
Yeah.
So, and it's quite strange for the kids because they're like... He gets so uppity about everything, and he's also quick to like get them in trouble because he's on a new planet, and for an Andalite who doesn't normally have a mouth, suddenly he's like morphing into a human, and he tries fucking what was it? What was the food?
It was coffee and a Cinnabon,
and it sent him like way up. He was off his tits on it.
Yeah, coffee and a Cinnabon,
and like that created like a fucking police chase basically. So. So yeah, Axe is not the smartest, but he's very sort of like fierce and sort of like honourable, like respect and honour and all that shit.
Death before dishonor.
And he fucking like of all of them, he probably hates the Yeerks the most, for understandable reasons. Although we later find out the Andalites are not so innocent themselves. Yeah. But he fucking hates Visser 3. And should we move on to Visser 3? The Vissers.
We'll go on to the Yeerks now. So
the Yeerks are basically these slug things that like they occupy bodies.
A host brain.
So they'll crawl into a brain of a race, and they'll have like various. They have like a grading system for races that are that they're able to enslave and ones that they aren't. And it just so happens that humans are perfect, which is why they chose us to invade, because we're not very smart, so they can. We're basically like
easy pickings.
Tanks, basically. Like we're not very smart, so they can use us. We don't question a lot, so we're easily infiltratable. I don't know. There's a bunch of reasons which make us perfect. We're like we're like the Goldilocks race, if you will.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with the Yeerks, because there are just thousands and thousands of them. We're not going to go into every single one, but we've got. Three notable.
When the Yeerks invade, basically, they inhabit just your basic people, your construction workers, your teachers, your police, and they turn them into controllers, which is basically a possessed human, which basically means that the Yeerk controls their motor functions, their speech, and they basically just it's like They Live. Have you ever seen They Live?
You and I watched it together.
Well, anyone who's seen They Live, it's that kind of thing. They're just. Although in They Live, they are actually aliens with a perception filter.
Yeah, that's not quite the same.
But yeah, it's basically just they're hiding in plain sight and nobody knows. Basically, that's the Yerks.
That's the
But really,
same
it's a slug
concept.
inside a human brain that's controlling them like a tank, you know?
Yeah.
Like body snatcher type deal.
So yeah, in terms of notable Yerks, we'll go over Chapman
Yes.
slash
Chapman
Inez-226.
is a notable example of a because some people will have volunteered to be hosts for a variety of reasons. One, they might have just been dickheads who thought that the Yerks could give humanity
them power
a
or
better
whatever, yeah.
foothold over, because the Yerks are basically like best friends with fascists.
Yeah.
They would be if it was possible for humans and Yerk to live side by side. Then the fascists and the Yerks would be like, yeah, great, we own everything, we kick ass, good. That's the level it would be at.
But yeah, the reason for Chapman specifically being a voluntary host is because it was agreed that it's him and his wife, isn't it?
Him and his wife, yeah.
Him and his wife
both
voluntarily became hosts because they were trying to save their daughter Melissa from also becoming a host.
Yes.
So they gave themselves up willingly in order to prevent her from also being infected.
Which is why when the first book begins, that he's already a controller from way before the powers are given to the kids.
Yeah.
So basically, he's been a controller now for the best part of like 20 years. I think in the books later on, we haven't read the book yet, but I know from reading in the past, it was round about the I think mid 80s that he gave himself up to protect the rest of his family, and his wife did the same. So yeah, that's sometimes they're voluntary, sometimes not. So you could categorize that as two different types of controller. So that's like the ones that are in humans, but interestingly enough, there are some, because the Yerks have a kind of weird hierarchy system where basically if you've managed to capture a better body as a host, then you sort of get like a promotion, and these are called Vissers, and they basically get special privileges where they can lead their own squadron of controllers and Hawkbajir, which we'll get into in a minute what Hawkbajir are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you get Vissers that are human, ones that are have taken. There's one, Visser 3 is the only Yerk who's managed to take over the body of an Andalite as a host.
And he also has the Andalite morphing ability because of that.
Yes, because of the Andalites have that inherent in their
So yeah, he
technology.
Has the Andalite technology to morph into other creatures, and he's got some nasty ones in his arsenal.
And yeah, so and Visser 3, basically, we've gone into what he is. He's basically just an Andalite with a slug in his head that makes him an evil bastard. And he is quite sadistic. Would you like to tell me why?
He's sadistic, just in... Basically, if you even look at him the wrong way, he'll kill you. He'll kill you, he'll eat you, he'll throw you out of a ship into the void of space. He doesn't care.
But he's also like a spineless weasel, because like the second like Visser 1 turns up, she just fucking like...
wrecks his shit, yeah.
You're a little bitch, go away.
Yeah, like, he's very egotistical. Him and Visser 1 have a little bit of competition going on, because Visser 1 is obviously the top Visser.
If he's the only Visser in the room, then he'll be like, I'm the big guy, you're all small and tiny. But the second anyone higher than him turns up, he starts licking boots very quickly.
Yeah.
He's a little bitch.
Which does take us on to Visser 1, who
Visser 1
is, obviously, spoiler alert,
big spoiler,
Marco's mother is Visser 1.
Yes. Marco believed she had died. I can't remember if it was drowning or a car crash. But yeah, the body was never recovered. So Marco was always suspicious of where she went, and he finds out in one of the books that a Yerk has taken the body of his mother, and it's completely understandable why he gets so fucking annoyed at that, because that's his mum, like the Yerk may as well be pissing on his mother's grave. Frankly, that's basically the level of anger.
The disrespect, yeah. I think that's all we know about Visser 1 currently.
Yeah. And I need to remind people, these are kids' books, so can you imagine that kind of rage,
Yeah.
And explaining that to a kid in a language they can understand. Catherine Applegate basically is a genius.
Low-key, yeah. So, another notable species, this will be the last one for now, are the Hawkbajir.
Hawkbajir, where do we start?
Very big, like, bird-looking things with razor blades on their arms. And...
Apparently they're benevolent. They behave sort of animalistically. You know, they won't hurt you if
They're
you don't get in their
they're
way.
pretty simple.
But they seem to be the pecking, the what's the word? The pecking doll, the pecking bird, whatever. They're basically the punching bag of the universe in these books. They get messed with by the Yeerks, who enslave them. The Andalites had their little bit as well in there, because the Andalites are known to get a little bit colonial at times.
Just a smidge.
You know, they've got a bit of a British Empire thing going on. So yeah, the Hork-Bajir could be seen as like, if you think about it, as like the Yeerks being the Nazis, the Hork-Bajir being the Jews, humans being like the willful, ignorant public,
and the Andalites
being the
Empire.
British government. Yeah,
yeah. Like, it just be like that.
it's that. So the Hork-Bajir are just shat on from a great height by everyone, basically.
Yeah, they represent like minorities in this.
And the reason is because they're easily controllable by the Gurks, and basically, despite being really kind normally and benevolent creatures, they can be weaponized.
They've got some heavy
because they're
weaponry.
basically walking razor blades. They have like giant scorpion tails with like giant knives attached to the back of them with big horns coming out. You know, they look quite frightening to somebody who doesn't understand what they are.
Yeah.
And they can be easily weaponized. So yeah, the plight of the Hork-Bajir. They seem to be like they're like a slave race, and it's quite sad.
It is very, very sad. Well, that is it for notable characters as of the time being. Obviously, we'll get more in later books.
So we, I don't know, like no one's like commenting in chat, like, you know, we're still confused. You know, like it'd be nice if they would though, because it'd be like we could explain things in better detail if somebody just goes like,
yeah, what do you mean?
You know, what does this word mean? Can you please speak English?
Yeah.
I don't know. My speech is a bit ratty tonight.
Do you want to go over like some of the parallels we mentioned? I know some of them we've already briefly mentioned.
Between this universe of Animorphs and the real world.
Obviously, we did just mention the whole British Empire thing, Yeerk fascism, Hork-Bajir slave race. You know.
Yep.
Obviously, the idea of child soldiers is pretty fucked up. It's something that we have seen
they're
in
kind of
this
pushed
world.
into that role of child soldiers.
Yeah, they're literally.
And they're traumatized immediately. Like, there's Prince Athangor's like murder at the hands of like Vista 3, and then like Marco's numerous near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Where like his animals like, he gets like ripped to shreds as an ant and a dolphin, and all this stuff, and he's like, no, not again, not doing it.
He nearly got boiled alive as a lobster.
Yeah, like it's always him. He always gets in like the big scrapes.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
I can't blame him for wanting to walk away.
Although.
Sometimes.
There's also quite a few examples of PTSD in there where sometimes after...
like, there's, remember that bit in the last, it was the end of the 5th book, just recently we read, and Rachel just fucking snaps and, like, tears the fuck out of some chick at school.
Yeah.
Because they had, like, a rough mission the day before, you know. So
there's also the times where quite a few of the different characters have woken up in cold sweats from nightmares of morphs that they've been in, like when Jake was a lizard. That really fucked him up quite a bit because he ate a spider and it really fucked with his head. He was like, it wasn't fun. So
because he can't quite get to grips with the fact that was a different mouth that swallowed the spider, and he's still like.
There was Rachel when she was the vole, I think it was, something like that. When she ate those maggots and shit, it really messed with her head. Yeah. And obviously, when you're a prey species like that, you're driven by fear. So she felt that overwhelming fear. Like
I forgot to mention that earlier. All these animals that they morph into to get the mission done, whether it be infiltration or sabotage or anything like that, they have to do under the radar. They have to constantly fight with the mind of the animal that they are taking control of, or becoming a copy of, I should say. Because it's basically cloning.
Yeah.
You take the animal's DNA, you clone it, and
you turn yourself into that clone. Yeah.
So it's not like you're becoming that animal; you're becoming a copy of that animal.
Yeah.
But they have to fight with the mind of that animal, and as you know, animals have various different ways of dealing with stress and fear, and you know, they all have different goals, desires. You know, like the dolphins case when they turn into dolphins.
They just wanted to have fun.
They're just bobbing around in the water, having a great time, because dolphins are pretty high up the pecking order, really, when it comes to the food chain, so they don't have a lot of threats around normally.
Not particularly.
Whereas if you're an ant, you're always like, you must stay in the pack, you must work as a team, because ants are all very pack orientated. They travel in hundreds of thousands of ants at once. You know,
they are social. They are social insects.
Yeah, they're very social creatures. So there's always that pack mentality that they have to fight when they're ants.
For the good of the colony, basically, that's what ants are.
And then there's always that thing where they get stuck. They turn into an animal, and then that animal just wants to do nothing but eat everything in sight, and that becomes like a big thing for them, because they have
run
to fight.
away.
They have to fight the urge to like eat each other. Sometimes it's really weird.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
So
Yeah, that's It's an interesting one. Like, I'm trying to remember some of the others. The cat one, when Rachel was the cat, she was really confident. Because cats are just so up their own arse.
Yeah, a bit sassy, aren't they?
Yeah, cats really do be like that. They feel like they own everything.
That's mine. This is mine. That's mine. Yeah, it's like fucking that cat from like Red Dwarf, you know, just like, I've made a lot of things mine.
I mean, yeah.
These investigating feet.
Do you know what? Come to think of it, that is exactly what cats are.
Well,
like.
the character in Red Dwarf, he plays the cat perfectly.
Yeah, he does.
That's for another stream.
Yeah, that's a.
We will probably do a Red Dwarf episode at some point. Can we do a Red Dwarf episode?
Are you going to force me to do
I'd
Red
like
Dwarf?
to.
Oh, for God's sake. Well,
we'll talk about this.
We'll talk about it in private. My answer is no, but her answer will be yes.
I might have the confidence to do it myself by that point.
Maybe. Oh, the last parallel that we were going to talk about.
Yeah, go on.
The queer coding / trans coding of Tobias.
Agenda.
The gender agenda. There is a little bit of transcoding with Tobias's character when he's going through this bit of existential crisis of being trapped in a body
if you're a human,
that isn't his.
Right, if you're a human and you become a bird and you don't want to be a bird, that's exactly like being trans. I'm sorry.
I mean, in England,
can you
it kind
please
of
explain it in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, I will try and explain it in a way that makes sense. Essentially,
I don't know if I can.
When he is in the hawk body, he is essentially trapped inside of a body that does not fit with his mind.
Oh yeah, I suppose we should mention Catherine Applegate actually does have like a trans daughter.
Yeah.
So
one of the kids
K.A. Applegate possibly could have put these like things in the book as like a little sort of like coding,
deliberate queer coding.
You know, I think she's the kind of writer that would, because she codes a lot of stuff in these books. There's a lot of like, you know, authoritarianism, you know, question everything kind of thing. You know, like it's basically a political crash course for kids. You know, if you think about it.
Crash course in socialism.
Yeah, I mean, first book. Straight away teaches you, do not trust the cops or anybody else. Anybody else who's like an authority figure, fuck them.
ACAB, the book.
Pretty much.
But yeah, so essentially the idea of Tobias is his mind and his body don't feel as if they are connected. His mind is in a body that it doesn't feel like it should be. And he's longing to be human again. He's longing to be in a body that is appropriate to his mind.
So much to the point where he actually tries to kill himself multiple times.
He actually does a few times, yeah.
And the only thing that makes him want to stay alive and carry on is this thing called thermals.
Yeah.
What are thermals?
Okay, thermals, as is explained many times.
Every fucking book.
Every book, there's
thermals are these things.
Yeah,
that lift you up
every book.
When there's warm air.
Yeah, every book there is a little bit of an explanation on the warm up currents of air that are generated from the planet, which in order birds to be able to gain more height, because as you know, heat rises. So the idea of thermals is that you can, when you fly in them, it's less energetically costing to you because you're not having to try as hard because it's doing a lot of the work for you. And yeah, not just Tobias, but many of the characters, when they have been in Bird Morphs, are always ranting about how great the thermals are and how great it is to ride the thermals. It's like surfing, but in the air.
Yeah, I mean, Tobias's life doesn't seem to get much better throughout most of the series, so at least he's got that going for him.
Yeah, he's got
thermals.
He's got his thermals and potentially a hawk that he might or might not fuck.
Some of that hawk pussy, you know.
It's so weird to think that he is a human brain in a hawk body that wants to fuck a hawk.
Think about it though, you'd be in an animal body and you'd have those impulses.
Animal instincts.
Think about it, right? I mean, Marco becomes a gorilla a couple of times. I mean, if you met a female gorilla and he let his animal mind take over, would he fuck the other gorilla?
Possibly. I mean,
would he need a break from all the fucking the war of the the invasion?
Oh yeah.
Some downtime with the gorilla, you know.
Oh yeah, how to get
time.
over warfare? Have some gorilla poontang.
Although I don't know. I mean, we have to think about this because they're kids.
They're children.
So maybe not. But like, I don't know. Would they have those impulses? They morph into animals.
Probably.
Because animals that are like fucking 2 weeks old sometimes get straight to the sex, and it's like animals that have different rules to us.
They do.
Like,
this is true.
I've seen like fucking cats that are related to each other. Fucking like,
okay.
Seriously, they're just dirty bastards, most of them.
Okay, we're going a little bit too far off on a tangent here.
I'm just saying, like, I wonder if that's a thing. If like impulses of animals that the kids should probably not experiencing do occur.
Okay, well,
and if they let the animal mind take over, would they start doing shit that is like really outside their comfort zone?
Let's think about it this
properly,
way.
Like,
in their human bodies as humans, they are teenagers. Young teenagers.
Yeah,
like,
well, I don't know. The
toddlers.
thing is, I always get mixed up with this because I remember watching the TV show as well when I was a bit younger, and in the TV show, as you know, they're a bit older. They're
sort of 16 upwards.
college age kids, you know. So they would start, having those kind of impulses and stuff. They would be like, starting to get into like fashion, and they'd start thinking about having long-term relationships and all those adult shit, So in the books, I tend to just see it the same way. I forget that they're kids in the books.
Yeah, in the books they are significantly younger.
By the way, if you ever watch the TV show, Shawn Ashmore, Iceman from the X-Men movies, the first three,
yes,
he plays Jake.
He does. Indeed.
The casting in that show is really good. Nothing else is, but the casting's great. Marco's hair. Fucking
yeah,
it's weird. It's like
it's so 90s.
Middle parting, and then it's got like perfectly like
he's got like
circles, like
he's got like
weird biddy haircut,
like a McDonald's M.
Yeah, and
M for Marco.
Rachel looks like a typical blonde, but she's really fierce in the show as well. Like she just throws down. And Cassie, she's like just your black chick, wearing a denim jacket,
normally in dungarees,
trendy, academic type. Yeah, it is how it is. And Tobias is a hawk, except for when he isn't, and then he's like a pale, like creepy, like he looks like a kind of nerdy sort of like person who spends most of his time in his room, doesn't come out much. Kind of like I used to look, to be honest.
A recluse.
Yeah. What were we talking about, and where do we go from here?
We were talking about how in the TV show they seem a lot older than what they actually are in the books.
Yeah, I've made that point.
Yeah. And then I was going to go, before you rudely interrupted me, I was going to go down the point of it's possible that even though they are literally just children in their human forms, it could be that when they morph, they become adult versions of said animal. Because there's no really...
Yeah, but they would still have their minds in that animal body.
Yeah, so it's a bit like... So... It's walking the line,
It's the impulses of like, if you're an animal, I presume that you'd be like... It's basically like
eat, fuck, sleep.
Eat, fuck, sleep, kill. It's so they'd be thinking on a different level as animals, and they have to fight that every time they become an animal of any kind.
Yeah.
So should we get on with the books?
Yeah.
Because I've got some questions for you.
I know you do.
I've got some questions on like things.
Some questions.
So we meet the team. Alfangor gets murdered by Visifree, who we talked about.
Moided.
They get their animal powers, and at first they're a bit like skeptical because they're like, "This shit be crazy." I'm pretty sure we were just on some heavy peyote last night. I'm pretty sure that couldn't have been a real alien, but there we are. It was.
Yep.
We've only got one viewer again. It's fine. Swings and roundabouts.
Probably because we were talking about gorilla pussy, like.
Maybe. You lot are haters. Honestly.
Grow up. Stop.
Gorillas need love too.
God's sake.
Yeah. So they find out about these controllers, like people that have Yeerks have infiltrated society, hiding in plain sight inside human hosts. One of which being Jake's brother, Tom.
Yes.
So we instantly find out that at least one of the Animorphs has a personal connection now.
And they learn about this club called The Sharing.
The Sharing, of which Tom is now a member, and he's very interested in getting the rest of them.
Yeah.
He's trying to persuade them to
The
come
sharing
to the
is essentially...
and at first Jake is very sort of like, nah, my brother? No way.
Yeah,
but yeah, he very quickly realises that, like, his brother has changed.
Yeah.
You know? So how did that hit you? Like, stake-wise, how did you... Because the book seemed pretty pleasant up until that point, and then I imagine things going a bit dark.
I mean, I wasn't particularly surprised.
Because I think there's some parts in the book where it literally describes Jake's real brother, like, screaming inside his own mind at Jake, like, trying to get through to him, like... But the Yeerk is so powerful in his brain that he can't. So,
yeah, that's like nearer the end of the book, to be honest. That's when they're doing all that shit under the school.
Fair enough. So yeah, there's that. And then from the Sharing, they infiltrate this pool.
The Yeerk pool.
The Yeerk pool, yeah, because they find out that the Sharing is basically like a giant room with a big Yeerk pool in the middle, and there's people there that are happy and they're having the time of their lives watching TV or whatever, as like a youth club will.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you've got people in cages that are just like, holy shit, what have I gotten myself into? Who are due to be enslaved, basically. So they basically cause a ruckus that releases a load of humans. They get in there, change into the animals. Can you remember which animals they pick? I know that Rachel is an elephant.
Rachel was elephant. Tobias was in his hawk, which is how he got
actually,
stuck
yeah,
as
we
a
should
hawk.
talk about that actually, because Tobias went into that mission as a wee boy, and he came out as a hawk because I think he got trapped by one of the controllers that happened to be in there, and not released. So by the time he managed to get out,
he was
stuck as a
stuck
hawk.
in hawk
I'm
body.
not totally sure about that though. It's been a while since I've read the book, so.
But yeah, so Tobias was hawk, Rachel was elephant, Jake was a tiger.
Tiger.
Cassie, I don't actually remember off the top of my head, and I think Marco was in his gorilla morph.
Cassie, I think, was a wolf.
Oh yeah.
Unless there's a different book.
I think she
know.
might have been a wolf. It's possible, either that or she.
But yeah, they basically charge in there and they basically create a distraction so that all the humans that are about to be enslaved can get out in one piece. And then, but the thing is, they find this big pool and they find out it's massive, like literally the size of an entire school, almost the size of like a. I think some of them are as big as a city later on in the series. They're massive, huge things full of millions of these slugs because they need Kandrona rays. The pools are full of Kandrona rays, which is it's a chemical that's abundant on their home planet that they can't survive without. So they had to bring it to Earth so that they could still continue. And every 3 days they'll have to exit their human host to get the Kandrona rays and then go back in. And that's why the Sharing exists. It's a place where every week or every 3 weeks they'll just have a rotation of humans coming in and they'll get their Kandrona rays, get their Kandrona ray on, you know.
Yeah.
And then they'll get enslaved again and head back out into society so they can carry on, you know. It's like a weekend at the fucking beach, isn't it? It's really, yeah, for Yeerks.
Somewhat, yeah.
And they find out kind of just how fucked they are because they're literally like, you know, 5 kids against like an entire like alien race that's kind of converging on their planet.
Yeah.
And they find out that this is just one pool, and at this point they think it's the only one, but it turns out not to be the only one. So so how do you feel about that? How did that hit you? The epicness of this giant fucking like this operation that they had where everything was already here, and these kids only just found out about it.
Yeah, it was a little bit surprising that everything went so quickly. It literally went from the start of the book, they had just got the powers, to the end of the book, holy shit, they realise it's like they're already here, they're everywhere, what do we do? And they're all quite overwhelmed by, because they realise like, shit, we've only just been thrown into this and now we have to deal with
they
all
are kind of
this.
thrown in at the deep end, you know?
Yeah, truly.
Yeah, so that's book 1 ends with them causing the distraction. And they think that's a success, but they're still a bit skeptical about whether this should continue because that mission was a close call in itself. And as they'll later find out, it kind of created like a bad moment for one of them. You know, one of them didn't get out quite the same way, you know.
Yeah.
There were consequences. So book 2, The Visitor. So this is the one where we find out finally that Tobias has been stuck as a hawk for a couple of days now, and he's only just returned to the other kids. And at first they don't know how to take it. And Tobias has like a bit of an existential freak out most of that book, and especially in the third book. And also we can you I can't really remember why, because there's part of the book where they need to go to Chapman's house. Why is that?
Right. Basically, they obviously found out that Chapman was a controller in the first book, and Rachel was worried about Melissa because she'd been very distant at school and she was really suffering.
Okay.
So then Rachel morphed into Melissa's cat, Fluffer McKitty.
Fluffer McKitty.
Big up Fluffer McKitty. And she goes in order to spy on Chapman for a bit.
And they find out that Chapman's got his own like Visser 3 communication pod.
Personal like projection chatting to.
And this mission gets pretty wild, doesn't it?
Yeah, because essentially the first time around it was quite successful, and she ended up getting out, and then she went in again. And the thing is, the first time where Visser 3 and Chapman had spotted her in the basement, he was just like, "Oh, that's the girl's cat. It's Melissa's cat, my quote-unquote daughter's cat." And Visser 3 was like, "Kill it. It could be an Andalite warrior spying on us." And he was like, "I can't. Like, the girl will hate me."
Bit of a wanker, you know.
Yeah, he was like, "I can't. You know, my she's going to hate me." And he was like, "Okay." But then Rachel got caught down there again at a later stage.
That's another close call, so that already, like, they've got, like,
she
be doing this?
She got caught down there again, and that's when Visser 3 was like, "Yeah, no, that's sus. Bring the cat in." And then he also was trying to force Chapman to bring Melissa in as well.
At this point, Chapman has a bit of a break, and he kind of reveals the real Chapman sort of comes out for a bit.
Chapman kind of fights against the control of the Yerk in his brain to protect his daughter.
Just by the skin of his teeth, Chapman manages to convince Visser 3 to leave his daughter alone for the time being.
But Rachel's still fucked. So Rachel is still stuck in Fluffer McKitty morph and is being taken to Visser 3. Jake hops on her as a flea, if you remember.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And she kept telling him...
That was quite traumatic for Jake.
Yeah, because, like, imagine being a flea. Like, you can't see anything. All you want to do is sit on something warm and suck its blood. Like, that sounds really intense.
It's kind of ironic, really. They're going there to stop a bunch of parasites, and then he becomes a flea.
He literally turns into a parasite on the cat, yeah. They do eventually manage to escape. Some hijinks ensue. They run away. Visser 3 is pissed off.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that. They keep just, you know, pissing him off. And
he's very pissed off.
Very much sort of like your typical sort of Power Rangers villain, like, oh, my plan failed again.
As sort of a side thing, Rachel's putting in a little bit more time to try and console her friend Melissa, because obviously both of Melissa's parents are controllers, and
didn't she write a note and pass it off like it was written by her dad or something?
She wrote a note saying,
something like that. I can't remember exactly what
about
it was, but
how her dad loves her.
Yeah,
basically.
You don't know it, but your father loves you.
Yeah, he really loves you. Truly, he sacrifices a lot.
That'll make me feel a bit weird personally if I got a note like that. But fair enough.
Yeah, it's a bit strange.
So that's book 2, unless we've missed anything out.
I can't.
People might remind us. I don't know. Like, it'd be cool if people could like comment and say like, "You've missed out this. Like, please talk about this." You can't see what I'm doing now, but it's like frantic, sort of like. Shouldn't have done that. Cut that bit. Book 3. The encounter. Is it the encounter? I don't fucking know.
I think it is.
Awkward silence.
Because book 4 is the message.
From the perspective of Tobias.
Yeah.
It's got a big hawk on the front, purple cover.
So yeah, what goes on down here is It's because it's from Tobias's perspective. They're at the
most of it is Tobias trying to kill himself.
Yeah. At the start of the book, him and Rachel are trying to free this hawk from a car dealership because
what is it? What was their thing again? Steely something. Steely McDan. Dan Steely.
Dealing
Dan's dealership.
Dealing Dan's dealership.
Mate,
Yeah,
that's a meme.
yeah. And so they had this red-tailed hawk who was being kept in this tiny cage, not treated very well. Tobias got pissed off about it.
Yeah.
So Rachel goes in as an elephant.
He was doing the nice boy, not nice boy. Yeah,
White
nice
knight.
guy.
White knight.
Yeah, nice guy hawk. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
but
my fair maiden, I will rescue you
so
from
yeah,
these bastards.
Rachel turned into an elephant, stomped down some cars. Tobias let the hawk out. It got on TV. The rest of the gang were mad.
Yeah, I remember Marco being like, "Are you stupid?
Yeah, you idiots!
The
like,
fuck
what
are
are
you
you
doing?"
doing? And then yeah, the rest.
Oh, we forgot a bit from book 2 actually. Do you remember that bit where Rachel is accosted by a group of creeps?
And she half
A
turns
bunch
into
of
an
possible.
elephant.
It's unclear in the book because they don't get to do anything because Rachel is Rachel, but it's implied that they possibly intend to either steal from her. You know, basically it's a robbery or it's a rape. At which point she's got like 2 choices. Just kind of stay still and be like, no, I'm just gonna take it on the chin. I don't know if I want to like, you know, attract too much attention, should we say, you know, because obviously if someone's got a camera, you know, mind you, this is the 90s. No, phones didn't really have cameras at the time, but yeah, you know, you wouldn't want that shit on YouTube, would you? You know, you know, just turning into an elephant and being like, rah, and then like, because people are going to want to do more than rob from you then, you know, you'd be fucking experimented on probably. But yeah, so there's you got the one choice of just kind of do nothing and yeah, just play dead basically, just, you know. Or turn into an half into an elephant, you know, just the fucking head.
Freak
and
some
just,
people out.
Yeah, just scare the fuck out of them and make them run, which she does, and she ruins her shoes in the process. But it's successful, and they run. And I would like to think those boys never attempt something like that ever again.
Yeah,
I'd like to think that would have traumatized them for life.
Hopefully.
So yeah, that happens somewhere in book 2.
Yeah,
I forgot to mention that. Back to book 3.
Back onto book 3. So a
Tobias
lot.
has a suicidal, like, his like midlife crisis almost happens early because of he's now a hawk and he has no goals anymore. All of his old goals don't matter because he's sort of giving up on the human side of himself and he's just resigning himself to being the hawk. But there's part of him that still hates it.
Yeah.
You know. But he's got thermals, so it's all good.
Yeah, so a lot of that book is him just describing what's going on in terms of becoming more and more like a hawk as time goes on. He eats some mice, he has a bit of a breakdown, Rachel pulls him out of it, it was all good. But then, whilst riding some lovely, lovely thermals one day, he has this strange feeling when he's in the air of there's something he can sense and he can't quite put his finger on it. But he kind of just leaves it. And then it happens again, and he basically sees a bunch of geese fucking kamikaze fly right into an invisible object in the sky.
At all, like just
yeah, basically an invisible object in the sky. A bunch of geese fly into it and just die. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, okay.
I better get the mates involved."
Yeah, he let them know, and obviously they hypothesized that it was a Yerk ship.
Yeah, the big one.
A massive one.
Yeah, they normally they're used to like bug fighters because that's the one they see. What's his name arrive on Vista 3?
Yeah.
Which is like a little sort of like.
Just a dinky thing.
Like it's literally shaped like a bug. I think didn't they say it like scorpion shaped or something? Like,
something like that.
Yeah, like weird like bug shaped thing.
But yeah,
there isn't obviously a bug. It's mechanical, but they
So
they must like the aesthetic of the bug because they're like bugs basically. So
they were talking.
But
so
this ship in question's like
it's huge.
They said it was like at least like 10 times the size of one of those.
Yeah,
so
they said it was huge. But yeah, so he.
It's not the mothership though.
No, it's not.
That's coming later.
But yeah, so he goes back. The gang are talking about it. They eventually figure out that it is having to, because they are in human body. The Yerks are in human host bodies. They are having to come down to restock on things like oxygen and water. They find out where that's happening in the forest, at the lake.
Which Tobias is very instrumental in because he's already a hawk, so he can be a sort of scout for them.
Yep.
Because they spend most of it in wolves, don't they?
Yeah, the gang
to start with, and
they turn into wolves to get to the lake. To which they...
Don't they have that thing where they get fish morphs and then they find out they got the wrong fish and it's the wrong
No,
type of water?
that's in
Book 4.
That's in book 4.
Fair
But yeah, let me explain. So what happened was they were in the wolf morphs. They got to a cave. They got out of the wolf morphs. They were talking about the plan. They then had to hide, unfortunately, because there were Yerks and Hawk-Bajir and everything all around looking for people. Park rangers who were controllers. No surprise there. So what had to happen was they had to turn into their morphs of fish in a cave, and Tobias had to fly them and drop them into the fucking water. It was pretty intense.
As opposed to normal water.
The fucking water. It's where you fuck.
How does that exactly differentiate from normal water?
I don't know, it's just intense water, man. Extra H2O.
Fucking water.
Fucking water.
Water that is not consensual in any way.
Shut up.
That sounds pretty scary.
You are going off on a tangent. Why are you like this?
I don't know.
So he has to drop them all into the water, and what happens is they eventually swim up this big tube.
Yeah, they because they figure out that the Yerks are they're collecting the water and everything they need, the resources, through like a tube that they drop into the lake and around the surrounding forest. So they think it's a great idea to turn into little fish and swim up the tube.
Turn into trout.
And then turn back into human forms, I imagine, and get in there and find out what the fuck's going on.
But essentially what happened was they got in there, they realised they could not get out of the water storage tank, and they were thought-speaking, which is how they communicate telepathically when they're in their morphs.
Thought-speak, yeah. Why do we keep forgetting really important shit?
Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I
the
just
reason
mentioned
thought-speak
it.
is a thing is because that's how Andalites communicate. Andalites have no mouths. If you're watching, well, I assume you are because you can hear me. The thumbnail that's on the video right now on the screen, you'll see the blue thing that looks like a centaur. That is an Andalite, and it has no mouth. It's like a slit thing. They don't. I think they eat through their hooves. That's like I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, it's
they
really
eat through
strange.
their hooves. And they have like 4 eyes because they have the 2 eye stalks. But yeah, they communicate through thought speak, which is basically telepathy. But basically, when the Animorphs inherited the powers of the Andalite, they also gained the ability to thought speak when they were an animal morph. That's how that works.
But yeah, so Tobias was flying close enough to the ship in order so that he could still hear their thought speak. He heard they were in trouble, but then he gets spied by some, I think it was Taxons who spied him? And
Taxons, big fucking millipedes that are like thousands of times bigger than normal millipedes, and they always have an insatiable hunger. They will never be fed. Yeah. They literally, at times, when one Taxon gets like wounded, they'll all just fucking eat the wounded Taxon. They are just gluttons, just absolute gluttons.
Yeah.
To be in the mind of a Taxon is to just have this insatiable hunger that will never be fed ever.
But yeah, so Tobias got spotted by some controllers, some Taxons, and eventually Visser 3. They start shooting lasers at him because
dumbasses.
Because he's in a hawk morph, but he is not acting as a hawk normally would. Visser 3 is instantly like, Andalite rebel, and so
Andalite bandits.
Andalite bandit. There you go.
Bandits.
That's the one.
And it's like, I think that's so funny because it weren't Trump like
Antifa bandits.
Antifa bandits, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of Animorphs because they're Antifa,
so much.
like the Andalite bandits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
Animorphs are Antifa, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just parallels.
Yeah.
They would be Antifa.
True. But yeah, so then they start shooting lasers at him. He's doing some ducking and diving like shmups, like shoot 'em ups. Just
Dracon beams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was avoiding that shit like a pro. But then they ended up shooting the ship so much that it fucking exploded.
Yeah, sometimes Yerks really aren't the smartest.
Truly.
Sometimes they get wrapped up in their own fucking conquest too much.
But yeah, so the ship exploded, the water tank got busted, everybody got back out of the tank, got back into, like, fishy mode or whatever the fuck. And
His
then
scheme.
and then got back onto land, turned back into wolves, and hidey ho. The mission was kind of a failure, kind of not a failure.
As ever, it's like a close call, and some characters. At this point, we know them as the kids. Some of them are really like, yeah, this was too close. I can't do it anymore. Mostly Marco at this point is still a little bit off the train because he hasn't found out where his mom is yet. So you know, like. He still is like, fuck this. I've got a dad I've got to look after, you know. Like,
yeah.
So we'll move on to book 4.
Yes.
We open book 4 with Cassie and Tobias, both having like premonitions in their sleep, like dreams, of a voice that's calling out to them, and they keep seeing like an ocean floor and a voice, you know, asking for help. So I'll let you carry on from here.
Okay, so it eventually leads down a path where they are heading to the beach in order to try and intercept this message, hence why it's called the message. And they're getting shot at by controllers and various other dickheads from the sharing, you know, the type.
Well, don't they have to go to the aquarium first to get the morphs?
No, let me explain, because you really don't remember this book that well.
I don't.
No, let me explain. So they're running to the beach, they're getting shot at, and then they realise that Cassie realises, because she's a genius, that their trout morphs are not going to fucking work in the ocean, because they are a freshwater fish.
Oh, we're freshwater, this is saltwater.
And then therefore they can't be in saltwater, so they morphed into fish, but then they worked as hard as they could to just get away from the Yerks who were chasing them and get back on land and what have you. They then go through the whole debacle of trying to think of a morph that would work better. They came up with the fact that there are dolphins at the gardens, which then leads us on to Cassie's massive moral dilemma of, is it okay to turn into an animal that is so smart?
We can tell in the book that it's been bothering her for quite a while, but she's like never really voiced it much.
Yeah.
But this is the point where she finally like has a bit of an ethical dilemma about it all. Maybe just because she's got a special place in her heart for dolphins.
This book is actually from her perspective, isn't it? We forgot to mention.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason why. Maybe she's been thinking that the whole time, but no one's ever like asked her about it, so therefore she's never voiced it.
Yeah.
But in this book, we finally get the
her own perspective on the situation.
Yeah, we finally get inside her mind and get to like all the internal monologues that she would never tell the others.
Eventually, she gets over it, and they start their dolphin morphs in a river so that they're not seen directly just morphing in the bloody ocean, because that would not be smart. They're going along. Tobias, at this point, he has that little watch that Rachel put around his leg, didn't she? So he can see their morphing time. And so they're out, they're swimming, but the thing is, as we briefly mentioned, that they do sometimes struggle with the animal brain that they turn into. Yeah. They spent
Although I would say the dolphin probably had the best time in the dolphin morph, because it was more of a distraction rather than like a fear response.
They basically spent too long fucking around having races, seeing who could jump the highest out of the water, who could do the most tricks and flips and stuff.
Crazy.
And then Tobias was like, yeah, you guys are running out of time, like what the fuck are you doing? And they're like, we're having fun, man. And he's like, oh my god. But then they see some sharks attacking what is known to them, dolphins, as a great one. A whale. A whale.
Big one.
So they then decide, okay, fine, we're going to go kick these sharks' ass and save this whale. Interestingly, I just want to point out from marine zoology perspective, I do like the
Dion's a marine zoologist.
I am in fact a marine zoologist, yes. I actually remember saying this to you briefly, but dolphins have been known to ram sharks in the gills in order to kill them, and K. Applegate actually put that in the book. I was very, very pleased about that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she got it right. So yeah, they were fucking up some sharks. Marco got shredded. So they had to come up with a way to save him, because also, interestingly to point out, Marco can't swim. Like, as a human.
He has to, like, flop himself off the boat and morph while falling, kind of thing.
That's later on. You're getting ahead of yourself again.
I'm sorry.
Stop it. Shush. So basically what happens is they're like, if you morph back to human and then morph back into a dolphin, you'll be fine. You'll be restored. It's only the animal body that's fucked up. Your human body's fine. And he's like, but I can't swim. So then the whale...
They don't know that yet. They find that out just by chance.
Yeah, he tells them
he gets ripped by a shark.
Yeah, he tells them this is what I'm talking about. Oh my god!
And they find out the DNA is repaired by morphing. So
she's literally just reiterated
I just
everything.
Communicate it a bit.
She's
more
literally
clearly.
reiterated everything that I've just said. Anyway, so then the whale decides to be nice because they just saved its life, and it sort of props Marco up and gives him a place where he can morph back into human without being in the water. So he doesn't drown, basically. He eventually morphs back into a dolphin, but more notably, the whale communicates with Cassie in a really strange way. It kind of shows Cassie this image of a dome underwater with what I think she described it as a blue horse-looking thing, because that's all she could think from, like,
which
what the
she
image
puts
she
two
was
and two
given.
together and probably thinks that sounds like Alfangor. Like, that sounds like...
sounds like an andalite, yeah.
And the dome kind of... It's like an underground city, almost.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah, she gets this image from the whale, zones out a little bit, and after she sort of, like, comes back to, Tobias is like, you guys have got no time left, like, you gotta leave.
Yeah, they have to stop halfway through.
Yeah, so they went back and they realised that for their later plan, where they have to go and find this dome, obviously, that they can't be in dolphin morph the entire time because they're not going to have enough time to swim to where they need to get to. So, I believe, as far as I'm aware, they become seagulls, ? To get onto the ship.
Yeah, they do.
They then morph back into human, wait for the ship to get out as far as they need it to, and then
the rest of the way.
And then get back in the water, morph into dolphins. But yeah,
they are chased there by isn't it like the sharing? They get them right after they get off the boat. Oh no, you're talking about Marco now, aren't you?
I was literally just about to talk about
cool.
Basically, Marco, because of the fact he can't swim, he had to start morphing basically mid-air after jumping off of this boat.
Mad lad.
Yeah, so that was pretty crazy. They find the dome, they get inside, they meet Axe, finally, and...
Yeah, Axe is like the... he is the voice they've been hearing. He's been pushing out messages via thought speak because... He's got no hope. He's at the bottom of the ocean. He doesn't know where he is.
Yeah, he's crash landed.
What's
basically.
outside? And basically, there's just this thought of like, whatever's out there, hopefully they can hear me. Basically, he's edging his bets because he's like, either I'm just going to attract a bunch of yerks and then I'll just fight my way out, or there's other Andalites on this planet already. He's not expecting a bunch of kids, put it that way.
Yeah, he was quite confused.
Because he's not, they get in, and then he automatically assumes that they are enemies, and he instantly goes under the defensive, and they have to sort of, they have a moment, they crack him on the head and just sort of like...
Yeah.
Because Rachel's ready to tear into pieces, isn't she?
Oh, yeah.
She's, because they get uppity with each other and start squaring up, and yeah. But eventually all's revealed, and it's revealed that Axe is...
Prince Alfangor's younger brother.
Prince Alfangor's younger brother, and the Animorphs have to break it to him that Prince Alfangor has been murdered by Visser 3. At which point Axe is absolutely apoplectic. He wants to get out of the dome and fight with the Animorphs. He's unaware of their customs, so basically he gives them all weird pet names such as... Prince Jake.
Prince Jake.
So because they tell him that Jake is the leader of their team, and because he's got his own ideas of hierarchy from his own culture, from his own race of his own species of alien, whatever, the Andalites, he thinks that like anyone who's the leader is going to be a prince. So Prince Jake.
Yeah. And
that's so cute, Prince Jake.
It is quite cute. But yeah, so I believe he morphs into a shark. Axe morphs into a shark, so that as they're leaving the dome, the team turn back into dolphins, and they are being chased down by Visser 3 in a very, very vaguely described, but
Yeah, Vista 3 starts getting really verbally abusive as well. Like, proper, like, sort of, I'll get you and I'll screw your whole family up.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna like
get you kicked out of college.
I'm gonna kill you.
I'll turn your water off.
Yeah,
like,
he's like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm literally gonna eat you and then fuck your mum. Like he
pretty much.
He was like so over their shit, and he's chasing them down in, I cannot for the life of me remember what Axe said the creature was called. That Vista 3 turned into, but it was basically like a giant sea monster, and he was chasing them down.
Oh yeah, and then the big one comes back, the great one. Whatever.
The great ones, and yeah, they start fucking up.
Vista 3 once again has his shit pushed in, and he has to retreat once again. Sucks to be a fucking yerk. So yeah, they narrowly escape once again to fight another day. Yeah.
As per usual.
So, we've been talking about the plot for quite a while, and we've not managed to get into questions, so we'll now do that. So, should we do that? What would you do first?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so you're an Animorph, right? You've just gained the power to turn into any animal. You've been told there's an alien invasion. You can't trust anybody because anybody could be one of them. Which animals would you take and what would you do? What would your first place be? First port of call. What's your strategy? Assuming that you've got a bunch of other people that also have the same powers.
Well, you are obviously going to need...
Actually, start with, which member of this team do you reckon you'd mostly align with, personality-wise?
Do I align with personality-wise?
Yes. Of all these Animorphs, of the ones we've described personality-wise, which one do you most fit with?
I don't think I fit with one more so than another. I think I'm quite a mix of Rachel, Cassie, and Marco, to be honest.
So you're feisty, ethical,
and smart.
And yeah, you've got the smarts.
And I'm also ridiculously sarcastic, and I mask my pain with humour.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's good. Well, that's good then. You're a well-rounded Animorph warrior. That's cool. That's all we need. Maybe you don't need 4 other Animorphs then. Maybe you can do it all on your own. I think you're so hard. Get out.
At no point did I imply that.
Yeah. Sorry, were you saying something?
I said at no point did I imply that.
Okay. So yeah, big invasion. What's your plan?
Alright, well...
Bear in mind with all the information I've given you in mind.
You're going to need a bird for fast travel.
Avian flight, nice.
Yeah. You're going to want something...
Which bird, though? You're marine. You're at uni doing biology. Come on, give these people some birds.
I'm a marine zoologist, but...
Yeah, but you've done stuff on birds.
Somewhat.
You showed me a bunch of shit with birds.
A little bit. Oh, God.
You've schooled me on lots of animals.
I'd want a bird that could handle... that could still protect itself as well as being able to have high endurance, so it could fly for quite a while.
What would that be? Which bird would you take to the race?
There aren't particularly many. In terms of the travel, I'd easily pick something like maybe an albatross or a starling, just to be able to fly for quite a while.
So what about your sea? What's going to be your sea animal of choice to do underwater stuff?
Wow, that's difficult. It's not going to be any... It's really not likely to be a fish because they're just prey. And
yeah, you haven't got much weaponry, stuff that you can use to fight with.
Whales are quite slow moving. They travel long distances.
You're going to want something big enough to be able to fight for itself, but also something that's agile enough
do you know what?
Quickly.
Why am I even thinking? Orca, straight up. Killer whale. Killer whale, straight up.
Orca.
The vicious bastards. They're sadistic
they can be.
They're sadistic as fuck. They can swim quite fast. Perfect.
Okay, so what about your mammal, your land animal?
My land animal? Well, I mean, mammals aren't the only land animal.
I'm not an intelligent person with this. I'm not biology. I'm not an expert on fucking animals. Right?
Alright, my mammal.
Read the books, but Yeah, what's
my land mammal.
Which creature would you use for land purposes?
For mostly land purposes? Oof.
Other than human, obviously.
It really depends. What kind of land purposes are we talking? Traveling? Are we talking killing? Are we talking sneaking?
Let's do all three. Sneaking. What's your sneak?
Probably, if it's not going to be an insect, obviously for getting into really tiny spaces, or an arachnid, some kind of rodent, so maybe a rat. Because the thing about them is they have essentially collapsible skeletons, so they can get through quite small gaps. And most people don't, like, especially in suburban areas, they don't question seeing a rat because they're everywhere. They're quote-unquote vermin.
Yeah, they're not very sus with it to see a rat, because like, in most places...
Yeah, you see a rat, people will be like, yeah, this place is dirty. Oh well.
Yeah, if the worst case scenario, they're gonna like, I guess I'll be cleaning the flat tomorrow. Like, yeah, you know, it's okay, what about your attack power, like vicious? Like, what would you take into battle? I'm guessing like a tiger or
something
mammoth.
Big, something with stamina, something with teeth and claws. I'm trying to think of the most well-adapted killing machines that I know of in terms of on land. And as much as I love wolves and whatnot, the thing is they are really...
What about an ostrich? They're fierce bastards.
Well, if you're going to pick a bird like
One
that...
of them, like, fucked Johnny Cash up.
Like, well, if you're going to pick a bird...
Ripped his chest open.
If you're going to pick a bird, don't go with an ostrich, go with a cassowary. They're fucking mental.
Didn't, like, South Africa have a war with, like, ostriches? Like,
no, Australia had a war with cassowaries.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, anyway, you're going off tangent again.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, as much as I love wolves, and obviously they are used in the book sometimes, the thing is, they work best when there's more than one of them. So if you're on your own, being a wolf, it's useless. So I'm going to go with a more solitary animal, a well-known killing machine, incredibly high jaw power.
Cassowary.
Camouflage. Jaguar.
A jaguar. Nice. Okay. Okay. Final question with morphing. If you were to be trapped, if you were to be a Nothlit, what would be the best situation for you to be in? What would be the animal if you had to pick one to be trapped in forever?
As in personally that I would enjoy, or as in for my job as an animorph?
For your job as the animorph.
For my job as an animorph.
You'd want something well-rounded, wouldn't you? But also not like something you could live with as well, because you'd be stuck like that. Unless the Elemist comes in and changes shit around for you. That'd be later.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Domestic cat.
A domestic cat. You heard it here first.
They scratch, they bite, they can give you cat scratch fever, they can climb,
fast.
they can run.
They can be evasive, yeah. Nice.
And they're not going to be questioned that much. Again, you see a stray cat around, no one's going to think twice about it.
Okay. So, another question. How do you ethically feel about what the Animorphs do in terms of their, like, becoming animals?
Oh, I don't think
so. If you were Cassie, would you have an issue with that at all?
Absolutely.
Would you think that you were simply doing it for the betterment of everything on planet Earth, meaning that basically you're doing them a favour?
No,
so
I don't. I don't think of it from that
Or
perspective. What? I just don't think that turning into a duplicate of an animal is morally corrupt. I mean, if you were actually going to take control of that specific animal, I would be like, yeah, that's a bit.
So you've got no issue with impersonation of an animal?
No, I don't. I really don't see why Cassie had such an issue with it, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that answers that clearly then. Okay. From here on, we'll go on to book 5.
The most recent book we read.
The most recent book we read, yeah, we read that recently. So, what's the point of book 5? What are they doing? What's the new plan?
Well, basically, Axe is trying to be able to communicate and get home. He's trying to communicate with the Yeerks to lure them down to Earth so they can steal a ship so he can get back to the Andalite homeworld and bring more Andalites back to Earth.
You know, people who are watching who've read further into the books, they're going to be screaming at the computer, just like, you know, you don't know it all yet. You don't know it all. Something's going to happen.
Well,
you're going to find out that someone's done something very, very fucking bad.
But yeah, so what happened was at the end of book 4, Axe kind of touches all of the members of the group and acquires their DNA.
Yeah, they kind of have this whole thing of like, you're an alien, so we can't just have you like out and about. We have to hide you at the barn, and whenever we go out, you're gonna have to like have a human morph because we can't just carry animals around.
Yeah.
Yeah, the supermarket or whatever. So he basically touches them all to become like a sort of hybrid of the Animorphs.
Yeah, he becomes like a weird mixture of all of their DNAs.
Yeah, because he obviously acquires all the DNA, so it's just basically a mishmash of all.
Yeah.
I think it said at one point it had like Jake's eyes, Marco's hair.
Yeah.
And I think like Rachel's skin or something. And
yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he has this human morph so that they can go out and get all of the equipment that he needs in order to make his communicator device.
Yeah, one of which is in Chapman's house.
Yeah, some
So
hijinks ensue because, as we briefly mentioned before, he drinks some coffee and
yeah, the
he
fucker
goes
can't
mental
keep
about
his
it.
hands to himself for 2 minutes. He has to like try everything out,
Oh.
and they're on a mission, and he's just like chucking things at people and
yeah,
just
that
going
I was
crazy.
just about to talk about that because
Yeah.
basically he finishes this coffee.
Yeah, he misinterprets like a thing that Jake says, like
No.
just throw it away, and then he fucking does.
No,
doesn't he?
it was
Just fucking-
Marco because basically he finished the drink and then Axe was like, "What do I do with this now?" Like the
Throw it
empty
away.
cup, and
and he
Marco was
fucking-
just like, "Throw it away," like throw it in the bin, and then.
He does.
Yeah, Axe is like, oh, okay, and he lobs it at the cashier as Jake's trying to pay for all the equipment and shit that they need. But then afterwards, Axe disappears and he's basically running around a food court eating loads of food that other guests have left behind. And so then more security get called, and it's really fucky, and he's trying to run in this human morph away from all the mall cops and shit.
Yeah. At one point, one of them accidentally starts to demorph. I think I can't remember which one of them it is, but it attracts the attention of some of the security guards that happen to be controllers, and then they call for backup.
Yeah, Axe starts to demorph so that he can run better in his own body.
And this
obviously.
is some of the security guards then kind of remove their mask, kind of thing. And
Yeah,
they go,
they're like,
Andalite.
it's an Andalite, yeah.
So then suddenly they're surrounded by police on all sides, and they find themselves holed up in a supermarket.
So yeah, what happens when they are in said supermarket is they find some lobsters in the live food tank, obviously.
Just about to be cooked, so they get there just in time.
But basically, so they acquire the lobsters, and then they're in there for a while waiting for it to be safe. And unfortunately, they get taken out of the tank. Funnily enough, they all get purchased by the same person. I find that a little bit lucky, but whatever.
Yeah.
They all get purchased by a lady.
Oh, that woman must have been fucking
Yeah.
scared to death.
They all get purchased by a lady who is making, quite clearly, lobster for dinner. And
Bougie bitch.
Marco nearly gets dropped in a boiling pot of water. But in order to avoid that, he has to start morphing back into a human, which really fucks up this lady. She's so confused.
Yeah.
Eventually, Axe and Jake
Since
morph.
when have lobsters like fought for
Yeah.
their life?
Axe and Jake
hard.
morph as well, and then they're looking at her like, "This is a dream, okay? You're dreaming. You're a little bit messed in the head. Just don't remember any of this." And then they fucking leave.
I'm out. Fuck this.
Like, and yeah, they get back, and then Axe is telling them about how he needs a Z-space transponder in order to send the signal to zero space so the Yerks can pick it up.
Which happens to be back at Chapman's house. It's a thing that he uses to talk to Vista 3.
Yes.
At which point Jake has this fucking like
Galaxy
galaxy brain idea of like, let's become ants and get in the house. And Marco's like, oh, here we fucking go again.
Yep.
And I'll let you do this because like you could probably explain all this better.
Yeah.
Marco's about to have the worst day of his fucking life.
Yeah,
basically.
so what happened?
Well, actually, is it? Because later on he's going to have an even worse time. Everything gets worse for Marco from this point on.
Always.
So.
Yeah. Obviously, this book is from his perspective. We did
Yes.
forget to mention that.
Yes, book 5 is from his.
But yeah, so they eventually decide that they're going to turn into ants, and so they get into, I believe it's the yard behind Chapman's house, because that house is empty, so they can morph in the garden.
Yes.
And then things get a bit fucky after they first morph, because obviously the ant brain kind of took over for a bit, and they were like enemy, food, like, must do this, must do that, must find the colony, friend, not so friend. It was very confusing. They eventually got themselves figured out. They were like, oh shit, we've got a mission to do. And Tobias is there, like, having a nervous breakdown, trying to get them to do as they're told, like, guys, towards the fence, please. And
like in book 4, just like, fucking guys, come on.
Yeah. And there was that little funny bit, because they're ants and they're tiny and they're crawling along to get to the fence because Tobias has actually got them to go in the right direction. And
they're like a fucking shepherd, isn't he? Like...
Yeah, they're like, oh my god, a wall, because they can't see very well. And then Tobias is like, no, you're literally just crawling over my talons right now. So his tiny talons look like walls to them.
Yeah.
And then they eventually get to the fence. They can't see the fence because they're so tiny. They can just see open space, the gap underneath the fence. I believe
it's like that movie, the animated one, Ants, where like someone's back garden is like a fucking country or something.
Yeah.
Or Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where it takes them all fucking day to get back into near the house because they're the other side of the garden.
But yeah, they eventually, I believe they find a crack in the wall, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And they start going through there to get into the house, but the thing is...
And then they find out that inside there's like a fucking giant ant farm. There was expected to just become part of the hive.
No, they were enemy ants, remember?
Oh, yeah. Was it something to do with like they were black ants and the others were red?
No, they were just rival ant colonies. Like, they weren't the same colony.
Right.
So they had basically invaded this other ant's house. Yeah, they had basically invaded this other like colony's like area.
Yeah.
So then Marco was getting fucked up and basically near enough ripped to shreds by
ants. So they basically didn't they this was after they grabbed the transponder, isn't it? They get in the thing, get the transponder, climb back into the wall as ants. It's ants can, like, isn't it true they can lift like 10 times their own body weight,
if not more?
Which means that the 5 of them together could have lifted that transponder because it was only basically the size of like a mini disc.
Yeah.
Like a little fucking like GameCube disc or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think they said it was a disc. I can't fucking remember.
Something like that.
But yeah, so they get that, but like halfway through getting back out of that fucking tunnel, they are attacked by this colony of ants. To which they have to like demorph mid, like
falling
they've just gotten out
of
of the tunnel, and basically when they demorph, they're underground. They're buried under like a foot of like mud or something.
Dirt,
floor.
yeah.
So
they have
Marco's
to dig out of the ground.
So Marco's like freaking out, like fuck thing, you know, because he's getting all that like my body's in 2 pieces. I'm clawing my way out of a garden, and yeah. As are all of them, but Marco's having an especially bad time.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
So, this mission ends. They've got the transponder. They get it home. Another close call. To which Marco finally just tells Jake, look, fuck this. Take the car keys.
Yeah.
I'm exiting the building.
I'm out, man. I can't do it anymore.
I fucking resign. Yeah, send my resignation or something. Send my credentials to the House of Resignation. That's the one. It's a reference.
Yeah.
To which Jake, like, yeah, okay, I get it. But Jake has this feeling in his mind, like, you say that now, but I know you're gonna tell me you don't want to come to the next one, but you're gonna end up coming because you're one of us. So Marco says, like, okay, this is my last one. The next mission is the last one. So the next mission. What do they do with this transponder?
They are contacting the Yerks in order to try and steal a spaceship. Vista 3 is not...
So they find a quarry.
Yeah. Although Vista 3 is not that dumb.
He figures it out.
And yeah.
They are surrounded by loads of Hawk-Bashir and other controllers of various types.
Yeah, and so they...
Straight away, pretty much, isn't it? It's immediate.
They get
put the distress call out, and straight away it's like...
They get captured and taken onto the ship, but Vista 3 has been talking about the fact that Vista 1 is around at this moment in time.
At which point they perk their ears up and go, oh, you heard the rumour? What's this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so they see Vista 1 and Marco's having this
like everyone except Marco is like, oh, that's just an ordinary woman. But Marco, in fact, I think, isn't it only Jake and Marco who know what Marco's mum looked like?
Yeah.
The rest of them are all completely oblivious. Marco straight away, like, screws his face up in absolute rage because that's his mother, Visser One, you know, and he's like, "Fuck, I might have to kill my own mum. Like this is ridiculous."
Yeah.
You know, they're just pissing all over my mum's grave, dragging her body around. You know, like it's just fucking like a used car. So yeah, and Jake is like desperately trying to tell like Marco, like, you've got to chill. If you go too extra right now, they'll kill us on sight. We need to like think about this. You know, I know it's not easy. So yeah, Marco has like a proper sort of meltdown within because they're held in a cell because they're captured by the Haute-Bajir and Visser 3. And the whole time in that cell, Marco is just fucking like punching the walls and being like, "I will fucking kill the next yerk I see." At which point, one comes in, another Haute-Bajir who is a controller, but they have like this strange, unexpected thing happens. We'd like to go into that.
Yeah, they are actually released to escape and told where to go and how quickly they need to do it in order to not be caught. And the reason for this being is because Visser 3 and Visser 1 are in this big dick swinging competition with each other as to who's the best. So Visser 1 essentially...
They're just trying to make each other look bad.
Yeah, Visser 1 essentially arranges for this to happen so that the Andalites, well, what they think of the Andalites, but the Animorphs and Axe can escape in order to make Visser 3 look like an absolute tithead.
So basically it's like inter-party politics. It's stupid.
It truly is.
But yeah, that's the parallel. That's another parallel. So yeah, they're very surprised because they thought the Haute-Bajir was coming in to like rough them up or like check that they were still in there or something crazy, you know. So they get the fuck out of there, like dodge, you know. They just like take the escape pod, or is it escape pod that they get? They're told to get in an escape pod, aren't they?
I believe
down
so.
an elevator that's controlled by telepathy or something.
Yeah.
It's a weird control.
It's
like an elevator that you jump on and then you drop until you think stop and then you suddenly stop and you're there. I don't know. It's the book describes it very weirdly. And they get back to Earth. I can't remember how actually, but they arrive back on Earth. And well, Marco now is very much on the you fuck the Yerks train.
Yep.
Even more than he was before. Carry on.
I actually don't remember anything past that.
So yeah, so that book 5 was a big like mind blowing book, basically. Like a lot of stuff becomes very real. It's the first time they proper sort of like get away from Earth as well. It's the first time they see like they're on the Yerk mothership, the main deal, and Earth is like perfectly like spherical. They see it out the window and they're like, that's our planet. And there's this big fucking ship and we're on it and it's right here the whole time.
Yeah.
And they once again they have that dread of like, we are 5 kids. How the fuck are we going to do this? Well, 5 kids and an Andalite.
Five kids and a horse scorpion thing.
Yeah, like I mean, like we're foolish to even try. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they will carry on because, you know, we have more books to read.
Yeah, there's another 59 books.
But yeah, like you can really in book 5 you can feel this sort of like, you know, they feel like they just want to drop down on the floor and just die right there. They're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
We can't do it. You know, what the hell are we going to do? We're just turning into animals, you know. So yeah, book 5, a bit of a downer because we find a lot of things really change. That's Animorphs for you though. Sometimes it's quite light-hearted and then other times it just punches you in the gut suddenly.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a roller coaster.
Which is how I like it. I like the fact that K.A. Applegate and Michael Grant can sort of like explain this type of stuff to kids in a language that I feel they would be able to relate to. Because if a kid's reading something like, I don't know, 1984 or you know, there's a book called The Voices of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
You put that in the hands of a 10-year-old and I mean they might find it entertaining, I don't know, but they're not gonna like understand the severity of what they're reading. They're not gonna get the gravitas of it. You know, the gravity of what they're reading, the seriousness, you know, the it's not gonna hit them quite the same way it would in a fully grown adult.
Yeah.
Whereas I think K.A. Applegate can basically, and Michael Grant can write concepts like that, you know, concepts like the freedom, slavery, fascism, loyalty, all these things that aren't so easy to describe, things that are like grey areas in society that people tend to just look over and not really question much. And I think they're great at like sort of communicating them to kids, because I grew up reading the books, and it's made me sort of like a well-rounded leftist because of that. So yeah, I suppose we better get onto that actually. So politically, you've been. I mean, I'd say you've always been pretty liberal, but lately, recently you've gone further left.
Yeah.
And since we started Animorphs, how do you feel that's connected?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was kind of always like apolitical, except for when it came to things like being gay and animal rights and stuff like that.
That automatically makes you a snowflake, cook,
F word.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We are F words.
Frankly, if you're left of Hitler, you're a fucking snowflake cook. That's what the world feels like at the moment. It's just crazy.
But yeah, so I really
This is the free form part of the conversation, by the way.
Yeah,
so
the past sort of
paper goes away.
Yeah, the past sort
now
of
we talk like people.
The past sort of 2 years of my life, I've been just getting steadily more left, and I've kind of leveled out at this point. But
yeah,
it is quite jarring seeing a lot of political concepts that are in Animorphs when you consider that it's a children's book.
We've all read, like, I don't know, Harry Potter and Artemis Fowl, maybe, fucking Alex Rider, Anthony Horowitz books, the kids' books, and they can have heavy subjects too, but like Animorphs is that much darker at times.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Anthony Horowitz knows how to do dark, but I don't know. It doesn't like I can read those other books again and again, and I read them more for nostalgia. With Animorphs, it's kind of like it resolves me and my political beliefs almost. It's like I can read it and then go, yes, that is why I don't like bankers.
Yeah.
That is why I don't like.
It's political theory for kids.
Like, pretty much, yeah. Like every time every time someone tells me like, oh, it's just a joke, don't get so offended. And I'm like, well, I mean, you saw the other day where a joke can lead, And Animorphs is a painful reminder of that. If you ignore shit too long, then,
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going off on one.
No, it's been a while since you've just had like a little rant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've got much else to talk about this stream, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess we can wrap it.
We kind of covered everything we wanted to.
By the way, I think we mentioned last time we were doing a big paint of the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
It's done. I mean, we fucked it up in parts, so we've. It's not been easy, but we got there. We went sky blue bathroom.
You now have a blue.
You don't care. None of you care. Don't know why I'm talking about it, but blue bathroom. We're all very happy. It's a relatively good year considering, for me at least, as like an individual, good year. For planet Earth, not so much, because I don't know if anyone who's watching in the UK, because we've got 2 people apparently. But if you are, you'll know we're in lockdown yet again, and we're hoping that they'll get the fucking vaccines done so that we can all relax and get back to
and our government is run by
clowns. But they keep fucking it every step of the way, just fucking 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. It's like gradual progress at like a sure pace.
Yeah, our government is peak clownery at the moment. Like it's just. So yeah, that'll hopefully. I mean, we've got other stuff planned. Shall we? Are we still doing the inauguration special? Are you going to be down here at the time when that happens? Probably not.
Probably not. We'll see if we can get you on Discord and or we can try what's it called, Teams.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, so that we can do it from like different parts of the. Yeah, we're bubbled.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap it up then?
Yeah. Okay. So, stay safe. Wash your hands.
Wear a mask.
Yes. We'll see you next time. We don't know when it'll be, but it'll be soon. So.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.